Okay, this is your laughing chaplain, and I just got done laughing for 1 minute at AI. And actually, I guess the real reason I'm laughing is I just watched another laughable video on somebody pontificating about the failures of AI and da-da-da-da-da, and trying to make a list of what the billions of dollars investments in large language models have accomplished, and he's going through a Reddit thread looking for posts, people's comments about what it's enabled, and he disagreed with a lot of the comments, saying, oh, well, we've been working on this or that for decades. It's not part of generative AI. And he's somewhat right. I started my career researching AI a long time ago, probably around, say, 1983, 1984, somewhere in that region. I was utterly fascinated by what was then the big tool in AI, which was called an expert system. And I was fascinated with the idea of creating a system that would be my mechanic about my motorcycle. And it would help me troubleshoot motorcycle issues, and maybe allow other people who loved riding their motorcycles and needed some help to figure out why their motorcycle wouldn't start, or, other kinds of programs like that. Expert systems, one way to explain them is it's a bunch of rules. It's a rule-based system. And if it makes a wrong conclusion, you can point to the rule or rules that caused it to make a wrong conclusion, and you can fix them. Have you ever heard of the game Animal, Vegetable, Mineral, where one person thinks of something that's animal, vegetable, or mineral, and the other person asks them questions, and the first person who's thinking of something can only answer yes or no to the questions. And so the person asking the question tries to narrow down. So I'm thinking of something, and you might ask me, so is it a vegetable? I'm going to go no. And you might jump ahead. You might jump over asking me if it's a mineral or asking me if it's an animal. You might ask me, does it breathe? And I would say yes. And then you might say, does it have 4 legs? I would say yes. And then you might say, does it live in the forest? I would say no. And then you might say, does it talk? I would say no. And then you might say, does it eat plants? I would say yes. Then you might ask, let's see, what else might you ask? You might ask if it has horns, because maybe you're thinking I'm thinking of a bull or a cow. And I would say yes. And then you'd ask, does it eat grass? I would say no. And now you got to think, well, that doesn't seem to be a cow then, so what could it be? So, you have some yeses and nos from me. So now that's helping you narrow things down, okay? You might ask, is it warm-blooded? And I would say yes. So then you might say, does it fly? I would say no. Okay, so now we've knocked out all the birds and bats and insects, and at least flying insects. Yeah, let's see, you asked me if it had 4 legs, so that probably knocks out a lot of insects too. It knocks out caterpillars, for example. Then you might somehow leap ahead and go, does it live in Africa? And I would say yes. Now that really narrows down the creatures that I could be thinking of. You're pretty sure you know it's a creature at this point. And I might say, you might ask me, does it have a long neck? And I would say yes. Bingo, you know it's a giraffe at this point. So you narrowed it down. Now what is fun is to write an expert system that can try to play the game of asking the questions and figure out. And if the expert system didn't know about giraffes, it would never be able to arrive at that conclusion. So you might add extra rules into the system for asking for more questions to differentiate more kinds of animals. And that was expert systems or rule-based systems. You would add more rules to the system, and you would try to emulate the problem solving of an expert by codifying the rules that an expert would follow. I was fascinated at the time with trying to make an expert system that could teach itself. So I was experimenting on this and writing my own expert system software and developing use cases for it. I didn't have time to complete a computer science degree because I got too much fun I got too busy having fun with computer science and coming up with my own ideas of projects and things to do, and people started paying me to do this kind of work. So my history with AI goes back a very long time. I later got a job in California because I was testing a very high-level AI language called Prolog, and the company was so happy with how much testing I helped them do that they hired me, and then they put me in charge of one of the lowest level languages for programming the IBM PC class of computers, Turbo Assembler for Borland International. But I've continued to follow AI, and the next big thing was neural nets. And then after that, all of these large language models and what's sometimes just simply referred to as generative AI. And most of the experts that you see talking about on YouTube about, AIs can do this, ChatGPT can't do that, it can't do the other thing, they all keep oversimplifying it to talk about LLMs. So they talk about OpenAI, they talk about ChatGPT, they talk about Gemini, there's various Facebook has their own version of these things. Almost all of them forget to talk about Grok, Elon Musk's company. And I don't know why that is. I don't know why all of these people don't look at Grok. It's actually my favorite AI. And because I know how to ask it questions, I can get some fantastic results out of it. So yeah, I can generate goofy pictures. Its ability to really generate a picture that I want is still fairly limited. It's very hard to control. But when it comes to asking it things like, for example, what would it take to make a ballot initiative to dedicate funding at the state level to fund activities for seniors in nursing homes? What would it take to set that up? And oh my goodness, it goes through all the, I live in California, so it goes through all the California rules about doing a ballot initiative and the government agencies that I would have to deal with and the reporting requirements and how much does it cost. And I've actually had arguments with the Grok because it would tell me the reporting rules that I would have to follow if I decided to do such a thing, and I didn't like the rules. The rules, in my opinion, are designed to keep these things from happening unless you've got tens of millions of dollars to sponsor a ballot initiative. And it shouldn't take tens of millions of dollars to help seniors in nursing homes be able for the nursing home to afford to have somebody come and do pet therapy with them, or music therapy, or my favorite, laughter therapy. Why should it take millions and tens of millions of dollars to get something like that on the ballot? Okay? And I argued with Grok, and it was telling me how strict the rules were. It was a pretty good debate partner. I use it to sometimes evaluate business ideas too. And sometimes it will tell you, oh, that's the most wonderful idea I ever heard of. And, they are kind of tuned to be encouraging in their responses. But if you know how to get down deep and really research things, like just write it a paragraph about what your day was like, or a particular problem that you're going on in business, write it a paragraph about what happened to you, what your business challenge is, like as if you was talking to a friend. And it will give you some amazing responses, because Grok has moved well beyond a simple large language model. About a year ago, I captured my own private copy of over 100 different large language models that I could run on my own computer hardware without an internet connection. And I tested them in various ways. They had some shortcomings. But I was really fascinated with the idea of being able to run things locally on my own machine and not worry about my data going into the cloud and all this kind of stuff. Well, all that time I spent playing with that stuff, it might as well have been 5 years or 10 years ago. The technology is moving ahead so quickly because now the systems are doing what's called chain of reasoning, where they're not just like generating some text based on a statistical table of word ratings, which is kind of a very oversimplification of how large language models work based on the data that they're trained with. But something like Grok, like I could ask it, find me all the nursing homes in Marin County, California that have 100 patients or more. And I can watch as it's reasoning about how to do that process. It'll say, okay, let me do a search for nursing homes. Let me read their websites. Let me see if there's some information about the size of their patient population. Let me look in a certain government database that tracks census information that the nursing homes have to provide to the government. It figures out all kinds of databases to go look in. It does several web searches. I asked it to evaluate a group of doctors that were associated with a certain video. It went to like 70 different web sources. It must have ran 10 entirely different web searches. It visited probably 70 different web pages to read up about what those doctors had to say and for a certain topic that I was interested. So it's way beyond the training data that goes into an LLM. And there's all kinds of new things happening to make that chain of reasoning be able to handle more and more complicated things. So the guy whose video that I just listened to, the video's only 1 day old. 1 day old, and he's going on and on about all this stuff that LLMs just blah, blah, blah. LLMs are yesterday's news. They're only one ingredient in the Colonel, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Colonel Sanders had his 13 special herbs and spices. LLMs are just one of those spices in a modern AI system, okay? And so most of the videos you're hearing are already out of date before these creators are even making them. So, I follow this stuff pretty closely. I've been involved in several generations of artificial intelligence. It all comes back to, what are you telling it? I have patents for search engine technology before there was a Google. Google engineers have quoted my patents hundreds of times in the area of searching the internet. I was involved with this, right from the beginning. The internet wasn't even a year old the World Wide Web part of the internet specifically. And I was writing search software to go and pull information from the web. What the tool, that would be just one of those 13 herbs and spices in a modern AI system. So I'm fascinated by how all this stuff moves forward. But I mentioned my search engine technology experience because I worked for a boss one time at Adobe who thought our internal searching of the internal corporate internet, of which I managed a very large part of Adobe's corporate internet for a very long time. I managed a very large wiki system that had millions of documents in it. We had special Google appliance computers at Adobe. This was something you could buy from Google, almost 15, 20 years ago. They had these Google appliances that you could buy that would be like a mini Google on your corporate internet. So all your internal websites for the company, this Google appliance would search all of your corporate websites and provide that information to the employees so they could search it. And my boss, who was the boss of content management, part of IT, she said, our search functions are terrible on our internet. And I would just look at her and go, you got to be kidding me. We have state-of-the-art searching. I took a lot of effort to make sure that Google appliance could get into every nook and cranny of the wiki system to index all of that information so that it would all be searchable. But the problem was, what do you type into the search box? That has always been the problem, because people have things they're thinking of in their minds that have nothing to do with what they're typing into the prompt, but they somehow expect a computer to read the user's mind. I'll give you one example. Let's say you search for cougar. Well, what exactly do you mean by a cougar? Are you meaning the animal? Or are you meaning that old car that used to be real popular that was, I think it was made by Ford, if I remember right? What do you mean? And then there are other senses of the word cougar that I won't mention, but you might be thinking of them and laughing. I hope you're laughing. If you don't type that extra stuff into the box, the search engine has no idea what you're looking for. And so programmers came up with ideas to try to read the user's mind. For example, let's look at other things the person has searched for recently, and let's try to guess. So if they've been searching for cats and things like that recently, they probably mean the cat that's a cougar. If they've been searching for a bunch of cars and they're interested in old cars, well, maybe they're searching for the car version of cougar. If they've been on dating sites recently, well, never mind. How did it go this long without laughing about the elephant joke in the room? Anyhow, it's all in what you type into the prompt. So, like I said, one way is to just have an ongoing conversation with the AI. Treat it like a friend. Get good at writing a paragraph of several sentences. Describe what your issue is. I described to Google how I was having trouble getting hold of nursing home administrators. I was trying a certain strategy, and I told Grok, not Google. I told Grok all about what I had been going through in this my recent set of videos on the Safari to prove that nursing home administrators actually exist. And it suggested a whole change to my search strategy and a whole change to my methods to get a hold of them. And it was pretty fascinating. And when I have some time to circle back to that, I'll actually be able to ask Grok, okay, start implementing this strategy. Help me out with this. I've used Grok to research scientific studies on laughter. Because, of course, I'm very interested in all the medical studies. There's at least 400 medical studies and it is very laborious to get a hold of those medical studies. So I've enlisted Grok as a research agent to help me with that. And sometimes it makes stuff up. We call this a hallucination. But I found that if I take the results from one conversation with Grok, and then I give it to a different conversation, and I tell Grok in the different conversation, in this conversation, you're going to play the role of a junior researcher, double checking all of the results found by one of the other junior researchers on the team. It's pretty doggone good at spotting the problems. So sometimes you can do what's called a chain of prompts approach, where you use the output of one conversation and then feed that to another conversation. And AIs love it when you tell them you want them to play a certain role. So, and then one last issue that a lot of people are concerned about is AIs taking away the jobs and stuff like that. I can't speak to that, but I will tell you this. As a chaplain running a ministry that is only just now, really only just it's crawling. My ministry is not even really walking yet. I don't even know if it knows how to sit up yet. It's just getting to a point where it can sit up. I'm in the very early stages of my ministry of providing laughter to seniors in nursing homes. There's no budget to afford fancy artists, fancy copywriters, people to handle the mailing list. If I want to have a mailing list to send out information to the supporters of what I'm doing, I'm the guy who's got to argue with MailChimp. And Grok was very helpful in helping me get the names and addresses I've already gathered into MailChimp, because there were a lot of ridiculous problems with importing the data. Could I afford to hire somebody to do that for me? No. Okay. So is Grok stealing any jobs as far as how I use it? No. The jobs just wouldn't get done, or they'd have to wait for me to have some free time to do something probably not all that well, And so in my view, with what I'm doing of setting up a ministry where the vision of the ministry is to help 100,000 seniors receive laughter in their nursing homes in 3 years. That's the vision that is in front of me with the ministry of Laughing Church and being the Laughing Chaplain, is to enable in 3 years to have trained enough laughter leaders and eventually laughter trainers who can start training other leaders. Okay. I believe the Lord has put in front of me a ministry that can lead to 100,000 seniors receiving laughter every week who are now receiving none. And to lead their caregivers to live a lot happier lives with a lot better personal stress management and happiness and more compassion and empathy for the people that they're caring for. Would any of this happen without Grok? I'd find a way to make it happen. I've started plenty of businesses without the use of AI, but it would take a lot longer. I'd have to wait a lot longer for the donations to come in. I'd probably have to do a lot more time hiring, vetting, interviewing people, having to have a budget and, all this kind of thing. So my whole point in explaining this is, for my use, Grok is helping to start a ministry. And I think there's plenty of people where the AIs are helping them to start businesses that never would have existed without having an AI as an assistant. So keep that in mind. If you've got an idea you've always wanted to do, you have something on your heart, have a conversation with Grok. Have it over a few days. Type in a few sentences at a time. Get good at writing. Writing is always a basic skill. Get good at expressing yourself. Do a lot of reading. Learn to write or type, But the AIs these days, just have a conversation with it. So really, you don't even have to become a good writer anymore. They're very forgiving because of the way They analyze the text that you type in. They're very forgiving of typographic errors, all this kind of stuff. It's truly amazing. But you can just talk to them. Frequently going down the road, I'll just have a conversation with Grok. I'm here where I need to be. Somebody's probably going to donate a computer to my ministry that the ministry needs. But earlier today, as I was driving around, I was asking Grok questions about the computer to make sure it will fit the needs of the ministry. That saved me a lot of time going out and looking up stuff. I could have easily looked it up on my own. Do I have an assistant yet who can do some of this research for me in the way that I want it done? No, don't have the budget yet. But I think Grok will be very instrumental in helping me help this ministry learn to crawl, to learn to walk, to learn to run, and touch the lives of hundreds of thousands of seniors eventually. So that's my view on AI. Be of good cheer. Have the joy of the Lord. Be sure to laugh for the health of it. And if you like this video, subscribe, hit like, comment in the comments. What do you think on this issue? And maybe I can address your comment in the future. If you'd like to, there'll be information down in the description where I'll show you how to get on my Laughing Chaplain mailing list, where you can hear about great stories about laughter and learn about laughter for your own health and the health of the people around you. Be of good cheer. Be joyful. Have the joy of the Lord in your life. It'll give you wonderful strength, peace, love, and laughter. Bye-bye.